In a world where jobs are how most people make money, one man, one desire, one challenge dares to break the mold. Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where we don't work for money. Money works for us. Coming soon. Viewer discretion advised.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network, where cash flow is king. Real estate investing, the means, so you can enjoy your retirement dreams. This is the show where we cut right to the chase. No sales pitch, no long monologues, just simple how-to real estate investing advice, so you can earn the passive income you need to enjoy your retirement today. And now, your host and chief old dog, Bill Manacero.
Welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network. I'm your host, Bill Manacero, and this is a show where 50-plussers and anyone else who wants to join us get solid, no sales pitch real estate investing advice to help generate real cash flow. This podcast airs twice weekly on Mondays and Fridays, and if you aren't already a subscriber, shame on you. Go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, type in Old Dogs, spelled D-A-W-G-S, find our podcast and subscribe. Well, we have a neat guest with us today. I'm really excited about. Her name is Farrah Ali, and Farrah is a successful author, real estate professional, and entrepreneur with more than 18 years of professional experience in business. After overcoming a difficult divorce, Farrah was forced to start all over again. With 2 kids, she was a single working mom in the insurance industry. After beginning her career in 2001, she continued to dedicate every waking moment to her career and her 2 children. After experiencing massive success in real estate in 2019, she co-founded We Win LLC, an organization that inspires, educates, and motivates women to invest in real estate. Today, Farrah still remains committed to her career as an underwriting executive while also keeping an eye on her real estate investing firm. In addition, she maintains an active role with the We Win Foundation, a foundation she helped co-found in 2019 in order to give back to the community. Well, Farrah, welcome to the Old Dogs REI Network.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure to have you here. This is great. You have an amazing story, and gosh, I want to hear more about it. I want to hear, more about, just, how you, where you grew up and how you got into real estate and all that kind of stuff. So, if you could just give us a little background, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So I actually was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois, and I'm actually still here. It's in the suburbs of Chicago. And, I went to college for a couple of years. My parents are from Indian background, so they immigrated to the U.S. in 1976. And, my dad basically came here because the United States called him here because he was like top student in India, and he was getting into engineering, and they wanted him to come here and finish his master's and start working here. So that's kind of how my parents came here and where I was born and raised. So I'll give you a little bit of my background. And then I actually got into real estate investing. I got married back in 1999, and, I had a couple kids. There came a point about 8-9 years after that where, I had tried so hard, but, things were just not working out between me and my husband at the time. And I was in a situation where I had to actually separate, but kind of separate without letting him know until I actually physically separated, and then would let him know, because I just wasn't sure what the response was going to be like, and, kind of was fearful. So I rented a house for me and the kids, kind of like on the down low, a few weeks before, and then I chose a date that I was just gonna, grab a few of my favorite pair of clothing, some jewelry, and decided to leave with the kids. And so, I couldn't take, obviously because it was on the down low, I couldn't take any furniture, I couldn't take any big items at all, and I had a job that was good for the day-to-day expenses, but it wasn't anything where I could have any sort of savings. So I basically walked into this empty house with no furniture, just my kids and a few pieces of clothing, and had to figure out how I was going to furnish the place, build myself up from basically scratch. And actually, I was in a lot of debt from him borrowing some money on my credit card and things like that. So what happened was, the first thing I did was, how do I, start getting more of an income? And I'm like, maybe I should go back to school, because I had never actually finished school. So I'm like, maybe I should go to school, get my degree, and maybe get an MBA. And so in my mind, I thought if I go back to school and get an MBA, then I'm going to get this huge increase and all my financial problems would be solved. So I went to school, finished my undergrad, and then immediately went for my MBA. And I graduated in 2013 with my MBA, and I'm like all happy and graduated, and my employer was really happy for me. And they did give me a raise, but it was like a 15% raise. And when you take 15%, and by the time Uncle Sam comes in and takes the taxes, it wasn't that much more money. And I was like, wow, like this is not really what I thought in mind that I was going to get. So, and this is nice, and I was very appreciative and grateful, but it wasn't going to help me cover all the costs that I was going to have in the future, because not only did I have to build myself up, I actually wasn't getting any child support at all for the first 2 years. So I knew I had to raise these kids financially by myself. So then what I did was, like most people, kind of went on Google, and I was like, how do I get rich? How do I become wealthy? And what I noticed was that a lot of the articles that I was reading all talked about real estate, investing in real estate. So then what I did was I actually read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That was the first book I read into real estate investing, like many others. They do a great job marketing too. So I read their book, and I understood the concept of what an employee mindset is versus, investor and entrepreneur and all that. So from there, what I did was went to a local real estate meetup group, because I didn't know any of my family or friends who wanted to join me or even into real estate. So I kind of just walked in, kind of intimidated, because it was a room with mainly men. And so I got there, and then I was about to join a course there, but then there was a guy there. He's like, hey, there's another seminar going on next week, and let's check that one out, and then we'll decide what we want to do. So I went to the one the following weekend, and I was just blown away with that seminar. It was like a 3-day intense real estate seminar, and the guy really knew what he was talking about. So, like most seminars, they offer mentorship. So what I did was I joined that mentorship. From there, I just, I got my first property under contract within about a month after joining that mentorship. And from there, I've just been able to scale up. I've done, currently today I have 37 rental properties. All of them are single family homes, except for in one multi-unit. And I've done about 20 wholesales and 6 flips. So that's kind of just like my back end story and how I, got into real estate investing. It was scary and intimidating, but well worth it.
Wow, that's an amazing story. You had this full-time insurance job, though, right? During this?
Yes. I actually was working full-time until last year, because one of the things that our mentor always said was, do not use your rental income. Use your income from, your work, your job, or whatever you do for your day-to-day expenses. So yes, I did all this investing while working full-time, and I did have, for a good couple years, I had a very demanding full-time job where I had to work extra. So I had to figure that out with the kids. solely supporting them financially and, in person. And then, everything else that comes along with, being a single person trying to figure life out. So, yeah, I had a lot on my plate. And I do get people who ask me that all the time, how did you do it working full time?
Yeah, and with 2 kids. I mean, that's
Yeah.
huge. That's huge. I mean, were you doing a lot of late nights or early mornings or to try and fill in the gap there?
Pretty much. I kind of made a schedule for myself. So I would, I would go to work, and then when I would come home, would quickly fix dinner or whatever I needed to do. And then the rest of the time was researching real estate, trying to figure out where to get properties. Going to classes on Saturdays. The classes were all on Saturdays, so I was lucky that way that they were on the weekends. You kind of try to prioritize, and you do whatever you can based on, if you really want to do something. I always believe that you can make the time. And so there were certain sacrifices I definitely had to make. I don't think I opened my Netflix for 3 or 4 years in a row, honestly, and I really didn't miss it, because I was so excited in what I was doing that it's something that didn't even cross my mind. As far as like social activities, my real estate group became my social circle. And it was great because we would all kind of help each other, motivate each other, inspire one another. And so you kind of learn to kind of let go of what's not needed in your life. And, you start seeing changes, and they're always changes for the good, as long as you do your part and you have the right people around you.
And how old are your kids at this time?
Now my kids are 18 and 20.
Oh, wow. Okay. So when at that time,
When I separated, there were 7 and 9. And then when I started investing, they were around 10 and 12.
Gotcha. And did you have any help with the kids? I mean, family or with your ex-husband or any of that?
No, well, with my ex-husband wasn't really involved much. I think on average he would see the kids once a month. My parents and my sisters are all out of state, so they were there supporting me, like, from a different standpoint, but not from like. I mean, I'm the type of person that will not ask for financial help. Like, I don't know what the ego in me or what it is. I have too much pride. I don't know. I'll figure it out somehow. But I've never asked for financial support. And as far as, help with the kids, I would just put them in the car, go take a look at the house, whatever I had to do. Once in a while, I would ask a couple of my friends if it was something that I couldn't take them to. And then one of their grandmas on their ex side would take them once in a while, but she was older, and I didn't want to bother her either. So I had to just do whatever I had to do. Like, it just depended on the day.
Sure.
Yeah, I even remember taking them to class a couple times because I just didn't have anybody to watch them.
Right. So it sounds like it's been roughly 10 years or whatever since in this whole process, right? Or to current?
So I started investing. I got my first property in 2014. So it's been 7 years, 7 years since my first property.
Gotcha. And you were also wholesaling and flipping as well?
Yes. So the reason why I did some wholesaling and flipping was because there were too many properties on my plate, and I kept getting more and more properties under contract. And I could only, with a full-time job, you can only handle, I think I was handling at 1.7 properties at a time. Like, they were under rehab or in the refi stage or under contract. And it was just getting so overwhelming for me to handle any more. So the first couple properties that I got under contract, I dropped them because I was overwhelmed. But then, something clicked where I was like, wait, why do I have to drop these? I should just wholesale them to my, investors in the area. And that's when I realized that I could just start wholesaling. I would add $5, $10, $15, even $20,000 on top of whatever I got under contract for, as long as it made sense for the investor, right? Because sometimes I would get properties under contract at real lower prices where I could put a 20K margin on them. And so that's kind of how that wholesaling came about. And as far as flips, my goal was that once I hit 25 properties, so I used the BRRRR method, which is, purchasing, rehabbing, and then renting it out and refinancing, right? So I had decided that once I hit 25, I was going to do more wholesales and flips to pay those 25 properties off so I can have $25,000 a month net cash flow coming in. But then what happened was that 25 turned into 26 because I got this property in a great area and I didn't want to let it go. Then I went to 27, then 30, and then I got this 7-property portfolio all at once at a great price, and I was like, I can't let this go. So that's how I ended up with the 37. But that's where the flipping came in, and I still have a plan to flip so that I can start paying some of these loans off.
So flipping, though, that's pretty labor intensive. Or I mean, you have to oversee contractors. I mean, there's a lot of. It seems like that would be very time consuming.
It is, yes and no. I mean, I was already doing it with the rentals. So when any of my rentals that I've purchased, I've either had like cosmetic rehabs or even full gut rehabs that I've done on them. So I already have the experience. It's just a matter of being more detailed in the rehabs when it comes to flips and making sure that everything is up to code, putting the nicer finishes on them. So yes, it's a little more work, but not too much more work than what I was used to. And as I started gaining experience, I had a contractor that I was working with, and he knew exactly the colors I wanted, the finishes, the countertops, all of that. He knew that. So it was easier to work with one contractor, and he knew, based on, he knew my taste and what I wanted, and it just makes it easier that way.
Yeah, when you get a good contractor you can trust, I mean, that's invaluable. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Wow, that is amazing. And then somewhere in all this, you managed to write a book. Okay, where did you find the time to write a book?
So, actually, I was inspired to write the book. Well, yeah, inspired to write the book because I still do actually, but I would constantly get questions. How did you do it working full time? How did you do it as a single parent? How did you do it with no money? Because remember, when I first separated, I had absolutely no money. And and when I started investing, I didn't have any money. But this investor group that I'm a part of, if the deal is a good deal and the numbers make sense, they actually lend you. There are private money lenders in that group that will lend you 100% purchase and 100% rehab cost. So now You're not bringing any money of your own table. And that's what that's how I was able to do my first deal. Because for me to wait to save $10,000, $20,000 for a down payment would take me years. And because they offered that 100% purchase and rehab financing, that's where I was able to borrow everything, refinance it, pay the lender off in full, and then just repeat that process.
That's great. That's great. And were you able to sell some of your wholesale properties to some of the people in the group too?
Oh, yeah. All of my wholesale properties have gone to people in the group because I make sure that it works on the back end for them. And I always wholesale it to the people that I know what they're doing. And they know the numbers as well as I do, because I don't want somebody to take a property and mess it up. Yeah. But, so going back to the reason why I wrote the book was I used to get asked that a lot. And, I would give people like 5-10 minute answers, and then I would have to go. And truly, I felt like I wasn't doing them justice by giving them 5-10 minute answers. So what I did was I'm going to take all of that, put it into a book. And now you have all the answers to all the questions in the book that I wrote.
So if they ask you a question, you say, here's my book. That'll be $25.
I mean, yeah. I'm like, I'll answer. But then I'm like, if you want more details, I have my story and how I got started. I have some tips. I have myths. I have 5 actual case studies of my property. So I lay out exactly what I purchased it for, where I purchased it for, what the exact rehab amount was, what it exactly appraised for, how I refinanced it, what I rented it for, and the exact cash flow on 5 of those properties, so that somebody reading it can see, okay, now this makes sense to me. This whole process makes sense, and it makes sense where the numbers should lie in order to get the cash flow that you desire.
That's great. That's great.
Yes. And then from there, if people wanted to learn more, I actually developed a course as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So were you coaching, or was it like an online course or something like that?
It's an online course. It's called Getting Primed for Real Estate Investing. And I have expert lenders and attorneys on there as well. And then I kind of go through how to strategize yourself in the right way so that you can get ready. It's kind of priming you for real estate investing, because what I notice with a lot of people, because I'm around a lot of investors, and newer investors sometimes don't even know basic terminology of what a wholesale is. So what I did was I created this course that, had a module on mindset, because there's a lot of things that I feel that people don't need to know ahead of time before they start investing to get them in the right mindset. For example, sometimes it's going to take a while to get your first property under contract. You'll get beat out by some people who are seasoned investors, but that's okay. Keep going. Keep practicing. Keep putting in offers, because you will eventually land something. It's just a matter of time before you do, but don't give up. So I kind of go through things that I experienced personally where I was almost going to give up, but I was like, no, let me just hang in there a little bit longer. And so I lay those out for that person so that they already have a heads up that it's going to come, so that they don't give up. Then I have one on terminology, and then I have one on setting yourself up right, trying to figure out where your weaknesses lie and your strengths, because sometimes somebody that even has a credit score of 500 can still do real estate investing. It's just that their strategy is going to be a little bit different, and it might take a little bit longer time, but they can do it as well. So I kind of touch on all those scenarios. I have the person kind of figure out, hey, in the lifestyle that you desire, whether it's going on 4 or 5 vacations a year, if you want a nice car, whatever it is, right? Figure out what that is per month cost. And then we work our way backwards to figure out how many properties we need to get in order to live that lifestyle. So I kind of go through all of that in my course. And, there's an intro to rehabbing. There's how the financing works, how to set up an LLC. All of that is in there as well. So it's really getting you a strong foundation in investing.
Oh, that's great. That's great. And you still have it's still active course today, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I just actually launched the course a month and a half ago, right after my book. So my book was launched March 2021. So and then from there, I've had people who actually asked me hey, I want to do more, and that's why I developed the course.
Great. Well, you also, a couple of years back, you formed this organization called We Win. And it makes me think, with your story, I'm sure as people heard it, and now as more people read your book and hear your story, there will be those women that are maybe in not too dissimilar situations, or maybe just, in a difficult spot. And the fact that you formed that organization is really neat. And can you talk a little bit about, what your motivation was there and how that came about?
Yeah, Bill, you hit the nail on the head right there. So that's exactly what it was. There were, a couple of us women who were doing really well. And then I started hearing other women that were like, I want to do this, but I'm really scared, or I don't want to go into this big group of people. So what we did was, me and one of my really good friends, one of my best friends, attorney Gina Diaz, she actually, and her and I formed We Win, where it was just a platform to, make women feel comfortable. So we would talk about our stories, how we got into investing. We actually do free webinars, free meetings, virtually and in person, just to, get women in to inspire and motivate them. It's a platform. And then if they are interested, then we kind of guide them on the next steps, kind of like what we did, because we know what we did works. So we kind of guide them in the same footsteps so that they can be successful. But that was the purpose of that, is these stories we would hear from other women, and same situations where women are divorced and they actually feel like they can't do something. And we're like, no, you still can. Here's how you do it. Or women who are like, man, I got into a divorce and my credit is horrible. But I'm like, yeah, but you could still partner with somebody in the meantime until you build your credit. So there's always a solution for everybody. And that's why we formed that organization.
And then you also formed the We Win Foundation. And what's the difference there?
So We Win Foundation is actually a non-for-profit that we formed right before COVID, and we made active after COVID. So One of the things that I always think about is, it's really nice to do real estate. It's really nice. The passive income is great. I get to buy all the nice things. But what is my bigger purpose in life? I know it's not about just making money, right? So, and it's not just about having kids. So, the same best friend of mine, Gina, and I, and another friend, Lori, we actually all got together and we're like, as soon as COVID hit, we knew we had this not-for-profit, but we're like, how can we give back to the community? Because right now people are afraid. They're suffering. Some people are losing their jobs. They're suffering. They're sick. So what we do is we actually go to different communities that we invest in the Chicago metro area. That are, the population that are underserved or need more assistance than others. And we do food drives. In Thanksgiving, we've done a turkey drive. We did a toy drive during Christmas where we gave away, we partnered with some other organizations and we were able to provide over 3,000 toys for the communities. We're doing a back to school drive. So yeah, we're just kind of out there just trying to give back, and we collect donations to give back. We don't use any of the donations at all for ourselves, or it all goes to people in need, and just our higher purpose, I guess you would say.
Oh, that is so neat. That's really neat. And do you now you invest primarily in the Chicago metro area? Is that correct?
Yes. So right now I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. So I haven't really gone into the city of Chicago because I don't know it that well. So real estate investing is unique in the city, whereas you'll have one street or a couple streets next to each other that are great pockets, and then 3 streets over, it's a horrible place. So I don't know the city that well to be able to figure out which street is good or not. So, but maybe some people that know the city well work for them. So I do mostly the suburbs of Chicago. However, I am going into the Florida market now. That's my new real estate venture. And we are, so part of our group, the experienced investors, are all going and investing in duplexes in South Florida.
Oh, that's great. Miami area or somewhere?
Yeah, so it's actually about an hour away from Tampa. So we're not doing, Tampa, because right now the market is crazy there, right? But we're doing like kind of outer of Tampa, in between Tampa and I want to say, Miami, but not like Miami, but just kind of in the middle there.
Sure.
And so we are building duplexes there. And we basically are going to build and rent them. We may sell a couple here and there just for capital if needed, but the plan is to do 18 duplexes.
Wow.
So I've already bought...
That's awesome.
Yeah. I've already bought a couple pieces of land there because I've been going back and forth for the past 2 months. And I'm planning on buying some more. It's new construction, so it's a completely different, ball game when it comes to real estate. But I'm really excited to learn.
That's great. Now you're working with people that have that experience that can help you out there.
Yeah, so we have some people over there that have some experience as far as contractors, but our mentor has been researching down there for the past 6 months, and he's learned a lot, and he's teaching us as he learns, we learn as well. So yeah, we're not completely. We have contractors that are experienced, but we're not having any builders or anything. We're actually gonna learn as we go on our own, and there's a group of 25 of us that are going down there to invest together. I mean, we all are investing on our own, but we're kind of going there together as a group to help each other out. But everybody will have their own lots and own properties.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Are they going to be different looking, or are they all going to be built the same?
No, they're going to be built the same. So that'll be the beauty of it, because we'll have one architectural drawing that we can apply over and over and over and over again, because that's where you save costs.
That's great. And how do you find land values? Are they pretty reasonable at this point?
Yes, down there in Florida, there's a lot of land in Florida right now, and the population keeps increasing there, and people are buying second homes there, and not necessarily everybody, wants to live in the major cities. So there's definitely a market for it, and it's something that I think is going to be very lucrative.
That's great. That's great. Wow. I mean, it's pretty impressive what you're doing. Financial future is at the forefront of everyone's mind, especially when it comes to retirement. But what investment will give you a legacy that withstands the test of time? While investments in real estate have proven their stability, averaging returns of about 8%, an investment with equity and help will not only give you the best security for your financial future, but an even better return, averaging 8% to 12%. That is obtaining cash flow while leaving a legacy. Now, what if your investment helped not only you, the investor, but hardworking American families in the process? At Equity and Help, they make the process easy by locating properties and finding the perfect family for a home that they may not otherwise have had the opportunity to own. That is investing with a purpose outside of turning a profit. Interested? Call your Philanthro-Vestor consultant from Equity and Help at 844-552-8828 or visit equityandhelp.com/podcast to learn more. Are you still working in the insurance industry?
So last year, I actually went from full-time to part-time because I was getting overwhelmed with everything going on. And then I had started writing my book too. And currently now I'm working just a couple, like 2 days a week. I probably will, I don't know, maybe in the next month or so, we'll probably just, end up focusing completely on real estate and what's going on in my course and my book and everything else that's going on. But yeah, it was really tough for me. I mean, I have more than enough income to replace that. It was really tough for me because I've been doing insurance for 20 years. I'm an underwriting manager. And I felt like I was losing part of my identity because that's been my career for so long. So I've been slowly transitioning off of it.
Right. Yeah, that had to be tough. I talked to a lot of people like that really love, maybe they're an engineer or what have you. They love their day job, but at the same time, the real estate, especially as it grows, and it's kind of that tug of war there. And some will stay full time in their job and continue to do it, but it limits what they can do, obviously.
Exactly. Yeah. With me going back and forth to Florida, I mean, that'll put a lot of limitation on me. Oh, and I'm not the type of person that wants to just, take advantage. And, I really want to get the work done that I'm responsible for.
Sure.
So,
wow. Well, that's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Congratulations to you. That's exciting stuff. With all that you've done, and it sounds like you've had a little variety here too, in wholesaling and flipping and operating rental properties. Are you buying primarily like C properties, B properties, A properties?
I buy in B and C areas.
B and C areas.
A and D, unless magically in A area there's a great deal.
Right.
B and C pockets is where I think it's most lucrative for our real estate, my real estate investing portfolio and the numbers that I'm looking for.
Sure. Well, you must have encountered some mistakes that you've learned from over the years. What would you say sort of one of those biggest mistakes were that you learned from, and what you learned helped you to go further ahead in what you're doing?
Sure. So luckily, I haven't lost any money at all in any of the properties that I've invested in. So I was fortunate enough not to do that. But some of the mistakes that I think that I made, I'll name mainly two that come off the top of my head was, there was this one lady that I had to end up evicting. And in hindsight, when I remember when I had, when she came in to sign the lease, she had a car full of stuff in it. And I didn't think twice about it. I just remember seeing it, but, I was just focusing on showing her the place. And so what happened was, in hindsight, I realized that that's a red flag when you have somebody coming to you with a bunch of stuff in their car, suitcases, clothes, this and that. So she was basically... evicted from somewhere else, put her belongings in a car, and the eviction didn't show up on the background check because sometimes what these landlords do is they do cash. They pay cash and then they say, hey, I won't put anything on your...
Cash for keys. Right?
Yeah, cash for keys. I won't put anything on your record, right? So you have to watch out for those scenarios. So now today I know, so I ended up having to evict her because she paid me for the first 2 or 3 months, and after that she stopped paying. So she knew how this whole thing worked. And so now, I look in people's cars to make sure that that's not the case. But I pay attention to red flags more than before because I was very, trusting before. But now I'm just a bit smarter. The other thing is when, I usually would have a contractor come in and just do an estimate and not get an inspector. But I think in some of my properties, well, at least 2 out of the 37 that I've done, that I should have probably got an inspector because there was some stuff that wasn't up to code that cost me, maybe $3 or $4 grand more than that was supposed to. So they're not like big deals. The numbers still worked, but just things that I was able to learn from and would want to pass along to other people as advice. And I do really wish I got into this a lot sooner, but I'm still grateful that I got into it when I did.
Oh, yeah. And what would you say your biggest success was in real estate that really just moved you forward?
I think what moved me forward as far as property goes, it's knowing after I did my first one, I think it sunk in that, wow, this really works. Like when I first got my investment property, I just, you talk about it and it's exciting, but when you actually own it, it's a very different thing. So I think that just moved me forward. And the other thing from more of a, all the other stuff that I do for We Win and giving back and all that is when, I talk a little bit about this in my book where after I got my first property, I had to be a testimonial for, for other investors that maybe wanted to, join that program. And so I had only one property and I was sitting there and they asked me to get on stage and talk about my property. And I was embarrassed because I'm like, well, I only have one property. Everybody else is like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50. And here's me with just one property because it was just when I first started. And so, I sat there, I was really nervous and I talked about my first property. But when I was done, everybody was clapping and I was like, what? And then I went down and then I went into the hallway during break and everybody started coming up to me and asking me, they were like, oh my God, that was so great. How did you do it? All that, and I was like, and then people would be like, I want to do the same thing. And there was this lady with, tears and she's like, I'm in the same situation as you and I want to do this too. So I realized that it didn't matter if I had that one property, that I had, I could be a contributing factor to inspire somebody else and change their life is what made me keep going as well.
Yeah, well, you definitely have an inspiring story. I mean, that alone is something. Just to see how you overcame all the challenges that you're faced with. No money, just starting off with just from scratch there, but you stuck with it, and you not only made it over that first hurdle. And I know getting that first property, even though sometimes you're only making a couple $100 after you're paying your loans and what have you, but just getting over that hump is just, wow, that wasn't that hard, and then just going to that next step and the next step and then, not getting discouraged even if you face, obstacles. But, and that's what's really inspiring about your story is you just plowed forward. It was really, really amazing.
Yeah. And I did have a lot of other challenges that I came through, just like everybody else does in life, right? I talk about them more in my book and stuff, but yeah, I talk about there's a point that I got laid off from my full-time job, early on in my investing career, and how I, was able to cope with that and overcome that. So, they happen, but you have to kind of just take it as, this is part of my life. There's probably something in it that I'm not getting right now, but once I'm through it, that I'll understand. And that's the mental approach I take with anything now.
Yeah, looking at sometimes those real tough things as just important lessons that we got to learn right along the way, and that's where experience is the best teacher. And but that's great. Well, our audience, as you know or don't know, it's are primarily folks that are 50 years of age and older. We have a lot of younger people that listen, but it's really focused towards this audience of people that are approaching retirement or already in retirement, and they either realize they don't have the cash flow that they thought they would have in their retirement, and they're trying to find a way to generate more cash flow, or maybe they have a nest egg that they want to perpetuate so that they're not drawing it down, but just drawing off of, in terms of their survival and so forth. So they're maybe more passive in their focus. Some might want to be more active. They're in their retirement. They're looking for stuff to do too, and that will generate income. So what advice would you have for those folks, facing that? We obviously don't have the same time frame that a younger person like yourself would have, but but at the same time, they want to build up a nice little portfolio and something that they can also hand down to their kids as a legacy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for those that want to be active investors, it's never too late. I know people in my in our investing community that have come in their 70s. Actually had one of my now friends. She's actually now 80, but she started a couple years ago, and in a matter of 3 years, she has 20 rental properties.
Wow, so, that's incredible.
Yes, she's amazing. And there's been several like that where they have come to a point where technology has advanced so fast that these people are no longer needed. They're in their 50s and early 60s. They're being replaced either by other younger people or technology itself, and so they just kind of need to start all over again. And so, and real estate investing has really worked for them. You just got to follow through and just follow the process, honestly. So that for those people that want to be active, that has worked. If you want to be passive, you can partner up with somebody who's active. I always say that it's better to have half a deal than no deal. Right. So partner up with somebody that will do the work, and you could provide the funding, or the funding can come from a lender, or if you can bring the property to the table and have somebody do the work, that works as well. So there's different ways around there. The other thing that I think people can do as well is if you have an IRA or money that's just kind of sitting there, you can be a lender. I know in our investing community, people are making 12 to 14% returns. So it's 12% a year and 2 points. So that's another option. You lend out $100,000, you're making anywhere between $1,200, $1,400 a month. For the time that money is being used for these investors. And these are deals that are backed up by collateral, right? So the risk is low there, and then people that know what they're doing. So there's just a couple options there. I think that there's a solution, honestly, for everybody. It just depends on the person and how much work they want to do or not do.
That's great advice. Well, what's sort of your plan as you look ahead here? You've got this nice little business that you've set up here. You've got these properties. Are you looking to now? You're moving into ground up construction. Well, where do you see your business in the next 10, 20 years down the road?
So I think once I know the ground up construction and my plan, I'm going to be busy doing that for the next 2 to 3 years. So like my goal, like I said, is 18 duplexes. I'm planning on having that within 3 years. And then from there, I sometimes, I really don't know. I never thought I was going to be doing duplexes if you asked me even a year ago. But I noticed in my life that things just start, coming up. So I just kind of go with the flow. As long as I know that I am progressing in life, progressing in, when it comes to finances, progressing when it comes to relationships, anything, being able to contribute even more back. As long as I'm growing in those areas, I'm pretty content. So if 10 to 15 years from now, 10 years from now, I would like to have most of my properties paid off in a matter of 10 years. And I know that might not be the smartest business decision because people say, well, keep leveraging. But there's also something called peace of mind, I think, and me knowing that I have less debt. Like I feel like I would have more peace. And then, eventually at some point I will be gone from this earth, and I'll leave a legacy for my kids. And I think they would appreciate it if they didn't have any loans. So
yeah, you don't want to leave them debt as a legacy, right?
yeah, exactly. And maybe they'll be more, they may not try to sell them off because they're already paid off and they're getting cash flow. But, we'll see. My kids are getting into it as well. My son actually bought his first property a couple years ago, and then he bought his second one last week. So
that's great. How old is he?
He's 20. He's 20. So
awesome.
Yeah, he's one of those kids that doesn't want to work full time 9 to 5 and have a W-2. And so I helped him with the refinance of the first property, but then I realized I'm not going to keep doing this because I'm not going to spoil him. So I'm like, well, if you're not going to get a job and refinance it yourself, then you better come up with the cash to pay for property cash, because that's the only way that you're going to be able to do it.
There you go.
For the past 6 months, he was able to save $75,000 because he does some stuff. These young kids, they figure out how to make money. And he was able to purchase a property just outright cash.
Oh, that's awesome. That is really great. Good for you. Yeah, and it is something more when you can hand it to them, knowing that they're not just going to sell it off.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Leaving a legacy is not really about the material assets. It's about what your kids remember what you did, and all of the things you learned along the way. That is, I think, is more impactful.
I agree with you. Totally. Wow. Well, we have zipped along here on our time. Been great. It's some great information here. We have a segment now called Wrap It Up, where I ask you a series of sort of, quick questions like a lightning round. And
okay.
And you just kind of share resources that you have known and that have been of value to you. So if you're ready, we can go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay. I'm ready.
Okay. First question. Favorite real estate book?
So I read a few, but my favorite would be the first one that I read, which was Rich Dad Poor Dad. I felt like that had the greatest impact when it came to mindset.
Yeah, same here. How about favorite business book?
I loved Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Great one. How about maybe a most valuable website for success that you use other than your own that has really helped you out?
I would go to National REIinvest.com, REINVESTE.com. I think that's a great place where there's resources there. A lot of free webinars, free real estate information.
That's great. How about a favorite app that you use?
Okay, this is going to sound kind of like dorky or nerdy, but it's Redfin. Sorry.
No, that's good. Hey, Redfin's great. They've got a lot of good info. What are you talking about? That's great.
Yeah, I mean, people sometimes I just love Redfin because it's changed my life.
That's great. How about a favorite quote?
I don't know. I don't really have a favorite quote, but I'll give you a quote that I actually created that's been very impactful for me.
There you go.
And it's one where I say that, it wasn't until I created passive income that I realized that the most valuable asset I own is my own time. Mm-hmm. And I really, really, mean that, because now that I don't have to work the 9 to 5, kind of being able to get up when my body wants to get up rather than forcing myself to get up because I have to be somewhere at a certain time, just feels amazing. Being able to, do a podcast in the middle of the day with you is just amazing. Like, these are things about controlling my own time. So that's my favorite one.
I love it. That's great. Yeah. And this one here, and it sounds like you might have a little experience along these lines, but if you lost absolutely everything, all your assets, and you had to start over, knowing what you already know, and you only had $1,000 in cash, what would you do with that $1,000 to relaunch your real estate investing business?
I would actually follow the same exact footsteps that I've already done because that's pretty much where I was when I started. So I had to, I put in a lot of volunteer hours in organizations just to kind of get, in with people and things like that. And I would do the same thing. I would just, it's all about giving and not taking in the beginning. And even now it's about giving. Your life should have a good balance of giving and taking, but don't focus on the taking first. Always focus on the giving first, and things will just come your way.
That's great. That's great. And when you talk about volunteering, were you, was that to getting involved with the REI type clubs and meetups and stuff?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would volunteer my time, whatever it is. Even if it was just standing there behind the counter taking registrations, that's what I did. Because that's the only research I had at the time to give was time. So.
Yeah, that's great. Really great. Wow. Well, this has been such a great show. I think you just provide a lot of excellent, not only information, but inspiration too for our listeners. And I'm sure they're going to appreciate it very much. I'm sure there's also those that are listening that would like to find out more about you and what you do, maybe your online course, your book. Now, we'll definitely have a link to your book in our show notes and detailed links and information on things that you've mentioned. But what's sort of the best way for folks to reach you or find out about what you do?
So a couple of things. One is my website, which is farrahali.org, FARRAHALI.org. On that website, I have a couple of free gifts. It's like there's a transaction list, so that like a closing checklist. There's also a partnership assessment questionnaire type of thing if you want to partner with somebody, just the things to look out for. And I also have like a webinar on there, like a free 25-minute webinar with just information. So that you can go to that. If somebody wants to email me directly, my email is rei@farrahali.org. I'm also on Facebook. If you could just type in my name, Farrah Ali, and you'll be able to find me. I'm on Instagram as well, which is Farrah Ali 7. I'm on LinkedIn. And then you can also follow my organization, We Win, which is on Facebook. So just a couple of different ways. And then obviously you mentioned that, if you want to know more about what I did, we'll have the book, which you can buy on Amazon. And for those of you listening, if you do buy it and purchase it and you really like it, I would love for a 5-star review.
Awesome. Well, man, it has been such a pleasure having you on, Farrah. And but it's not over yet. We have one last thing, and it's a little tradition we have on our show, where our guests close us out with their best old hound dog howl. Now, I realize you're from Chicago. There's not a lot of hound dogs up there. So and you've never had a dog, you told me. So, okay, you can't really use, from experience here. But, we're gonna let you give it a shot anyway, okay?
Well, I'm going to have you do it, and I'm going to repeat after you because I don't even know where to start.
Okay, well, I normally don't do this. Other people have asked me to do this, and I usually say, no, you're on your own. You come on the show, you got to know how to do it. But I understand. You
can make exceptions.
Yeah, okay. So my howl is usually something like, ow, that kind of a thing, okay? So, I mean, but you don't have to do it like that. You could be creative and do your own.
I'll do like a shorter version.
Okay.
How about, oh?
That's good. That works. Okay. Well, Farrah, thank you so much for being on. Really great stuff. And I think it's great. We're definitely going to feature your book also in our newsletter here because I think it's something good resource for our listeners. So, but thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I also want to thank all our old dog listeners out there, too, for joining us. I know there's a lot of other things you could be doing right now, but the fact that you've taken the time to join us means a lot, and we really appreciate it. Everything that Farrah talked about today in this show can be accessed in detail in our show notes on the Old Dogs website at olddogsreinetwork.com/blog, and you're going to look for the episode with Farrah Ali. Well, that's the show for today. Remember, cash flow is king, and real estate investing the means. Until next time, keep moving forward, and may God bless.
Thank you very much for visiting the Old Dogs REI Network. We would greatly appreciate if you would stop by iTunes and let us know what you think of the show. We would love if you could subscribe to the podcast, give us a 5-star rating, and write a review. The more ratings and reviews we receive, the more visible the podcast will be to others. Thank you.